The response to that is not get out of the masjid. You have no right to kick a person out of the masjid. The response to that is let's assist this person.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, in your masjid sometimes drug addicts turn up. Okay. MashaAllah, masajid tend to have a lot of resources available.
Yeah.
Have some clothes. Okay. Have shower facilities
of
available.
course, that's a really good
Okay?
mosques.
Have food available for the person, inshallah. And then, yes, whatever the motivation is, as well as this person wants to come and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe he wants to be inside the masjid to save himself from the elements, the cold and the rain and such things. No problem, we're going to help him. You see, because he's in the masjid now, mashallah. Let's help him clean up, let's feed him, let's let him spend the day in the masjid. What's the problem?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, we're on our penultimate session for the addiction series, inshallah. Yes. So today we will be talking about something which is actually very, very prominent in all societies, especially within Muslims as well, and that is the use of drugs and drug use, etc. So today we will inshallah be talking about that. I think we have something a little bit different. What are we going to do? So we're going to first be watching a video, inshallah, and reacting to it. So, Siddhi, can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, inshallah, we'll watch the video first.
What's your name?
Aziz, Changmia.
Changmia?
Yeah.
Okay. And how old are you?
46.
Okay. Alright, so did you grow up around there?
Yes, we're born and raised in London's East End.
Born and raised, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And growing up, how was it?
Well, I was educated. I was studying full time.
Yeah?
And I ended up with drugs when I was about 21.
Okay.
So since then, for about 22 years, I've been on drugs. 22, 23 years. I've been Class A, yeah.
How did you get started with the drug?
I went into a party, it turned out to be a crack house. And back then in the 90s, we were doing a lot of LSD, a lot of trips and stuff. I didn't know how serious heroin and crack was until I got involved. But then my life went downhill. I graduated with a law degree. But ever since I got onto the heroin and crack, I've deteriorated. Last 5 years, I've dissociated myself from my family. My family don't see me anymore. But as a Muslim family, we were tight-knit. But everyone was struggling in the family, in the household, and I had an £80 a day habit, and I started shooting up. If I can show you, if you want to show you how much. You can see that? And it's deteriorated. And the coronavirus obviously hasn't helped, so.
Yeah, well, you were saying something about the corona.
Yeah, it's made it difficult because people don't want to approach people. I beg for my money to make. I don't steal, I don't rob. People do their own thing. Me, I beg for my money, yeah. That's how I approach it.
Yeah.
So this is great,
Yeah.
I haven't had a hit yet all day.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I'm struggling a bit. My life's been like this though, and it's dangerous. You don't know what's going to happen from one moment to the next. Not one day to the next, one moment to the next.
So I'm going to pause it there, subhanAllah. So basically, he actually just got graduated.
They were celebrating his party.
And he was
And he
celebrating.
accidentally was in that place. He wasn't looking to go.
And this is fast forward 20 something years.
Do you know what a crack house is, though?
It's probably like a place
It's basically where like drugs are basically sold to people.
You go there for drugs.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, and he was just doing it because he just graduated from a law degree.
Yeah, so I
At
think
21. He was only 21.
Well, he makes it clear in his video he wasn't looking to do that.
He just ended up there, but that's taken him to this situation.
It shows how like one moment can just change the rest of your life.
It shows the strength of drugs.
Yeah.
It shows like addiction, how far addiction can take. Because we're not even talking about days or months. We're talking about years. So 20 years later, or whatever he said, he's struggling.
It's just like that.
Yeah. It's very addictive.
Yeah.
It gets you hooked on. It gets you hooked very, very quickly.
Okay.
And if you don't know what it is, if you don't know what it does to people, then you will get hooked.
In the Muslim culture, things like that are actually frowned upon. So
Stigmatized, yeah.
Stigmatized.
It's like they will disown you because you.
Sidney, so I'm not sure the brother that's interviewing if they are Muslim. So they're asking the question in Muslim culture, this is frowned upon.
Yeah.
And the brother responds with yes, and stigmatized.
Yes, haram, no doubt, extremely haram. And a few other things that should be mentioned here. First of all, of course, normally people shouldn't reveal their sins. He's revealing a lot of sins here. Some scholars make an exception that, look, if you're revealing sins and there's a clear necessity to warn other Muslims, and it may well be permitted. So I want to clarify that, because sometimes, okay, fine, you might find a justification here. This is a very extreme example. It could serve as a lesson to others. But sometimes people do reveal sins with no real good reason or purpose. Okay, and they do say regarding drug addicts that they often will not listen to people who haven't experienced it, which is a shame. But if that's the reality, then I suppose you could call this a necessity. The other thing, of course, not only are the drugs frowned upon, going to parties like that not frowned upon, both are prohibited. So, of course, if Muslims actually abide by the teachings of Islam, they will stay far away from this situation. And again, Allah Most High grant him strength, and he should obviously seek the right avenues to change his life. But the point is, Islam is so complete that it will save you from that situation in the first place. You won't put yourself in a situation where you may be offered drugs, or you may have peer pressure to take them, or you might see others taking them, and you won't be in that situation in the first place, because you're not going to go to such a place. Having said that, yes, I don't know exactly what he means by stigmatized, but it's not correct for a Muslim community to look at a drug addict who wants help and refuse to help such a person. It's an absolute obligation to help such a person. It can obviously be frustrating, because sometimes you're helping a person and they relapse. But what we're going to look at is this person is actually reaching out, actually wants help. We should help such an individual, no doubt about it. We're not going to say, he's a drug addict, we want nothing to do with him. People make mistakes, they fall into sin, they fall into error, and they need to be assisted.
It's like they think you chose it and it's haram. They call it haram. They call it unlawful.
Okay.
But they don't understand where we're coming from. They don't understand us. But I'd rather take my problems with me than put it with my family.
Okay.
So I moved away.
So you're not in contact with family at all?
No, for the last 5 years, no.
For the last 5 years? Wow. I remember you said that they disowned you a while back. How long ago was that then?
10, 15 years.
They disowned you completely.
Points they want to make. What's the ruling on families disowning people? But the point is that the family might be thinking that this person is a threat to other family members.
Many other. They might think this person is going to be a bad influence on the younger members of the family.
So
you see, and he said he doesn't steal and such things. But again, when somebody's in that situation, it's not far fetched for the family to think, hold on a minute, our belongings are not safe. You see, so obviously we don't know the specifics of the situation. We have to say that sometimes families try, nothing works, and they resort to just distancing themselves from this person, because either they feel he's going to learn a lesson when we stop supporting him, or they feel that this is going to impact other members of the family. But khair, what we should also say, a family who doesn't really make an effort, which I'm guessing is going to be fairly rare, but a family who doesn't make an effort, and despite their drug addict relative reaching out and seeking help, just turns away from him, that's wrong, completely wrong.
And in the last 5 years, been like in contact with my mum. So after that, it was just gone. So basically, I'll be moving around, and if I can stay around here, I will. But I try and move out, and I try and move around a lot.
Okay.
I don't want to stay in one place.
And is there a reason for that?
Well, if I stay on the move, people won't know my face much, and then I won't see many regulars. So that if I'm begging, then I'll be in various places. In one place with the virus thing, if it's in one place, you don't get much, because like for today, I only got £1.50, man, for about 6 days. I really need to get a hit, because I haven't had it, man. My usual is £80 a day, so. Last couple of weeks now, I've been moving around. But obviously in the last 10, 15 years, I've been in squads, been kicked out, stayed in certain places, staying with mates. It's not been all the time, roughly. But you know, in general terms, yes. I haven't had a solid place to stay. No.
Never. And if you had to go back to that night,
I wouldn't choose it. No, I would not have even gone into that party. No. It's been the biggest regret of my life.
So is that the one thing you would say in your life?
My brother's saying, and I think it's good for the listeners to hear that he's actually reflecting and saying, not have.
Yeah, he's lost everything.
Yeah.
Subhanallah, he's lost his deen. I'm not saying he's kafir, but you know, he's evidently doesn't seem to be involved in religious practice, religious activity. Lost his family, and if he had lost nothing other than contact with his mother and that relationship, it's a huge loss. No drug is going to come close to the bond and the love and the blessing of the relationship with one's parents. Subhanallah. But that's the thing, those people who push these kind of things, they're interested in the money, and they don't reflect upon or they don't care about the destruction it causes in people's lives when billah.
What about like in this situation where the brother is very remorseful,
Yeah,
but he can't do anything because he's just addicted? It's such a difficult situation.
Of course, it's difficult, and as we've said in previous sessions, that fortunately there are experts out there that help to treat this kind of thing. You have to go to the right places. Of course, you reach out to your family, but with things as difficult as this type of addiction, you have to seek assistance from the experts in the field.
Yeah.
And whenever I speak about experts, I always prefer that it's Muslim experts, because they understand the Muslim better. But you do need that. You need people who help people get off of drugs.
Yeah.
Do you think there's ever a situation where someone can just be beyond help, or do you think there's always a way to help someone?
It's difficult for us to make that judgment, the outsider looking in. It's very difficult for us to make the judgment, and we have to go by the general rule. And the general rule is you take responsibility for your actions, you try to walk the right path, you try to rectify yourself, and you hope and you trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ultimately, was it the case that this person was really trying but kept failing, and he made his every last ounce of effort and still failed? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. So what we will do as the outsider, we'll just we won't judge the person, meaning sometimes when you say, oh, we don't judge the person, they'll say, yeah, you can't say he's wrong, you can't say drugs are wrong, you can't. No, that's the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited it. What I mean by we won't judge the person, we're not going to say that, he doesn't try or doesn't make an effort.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. But we're just going to continuously encourage him. We're going to say, look, you have this avenue, you have this option, take this. And says, I tried it before, we'll say, try another one. I tried this clinic, we'll say, try another one. This person was helping, we'll say, try another person. Don't give up.
Yeah.
You just keep on trying, don't give up.
I think that's one of the problems, is that he has no one to encourage him. If he's homeless, he doesn't have a family, doesn't have any support, so there's no one there to give him that push.
I think there's a lot of people in that situation as well.
Yeah.
They've got no support system around them, so they just give up. I feel like it's like that. There's this thing that I always say. It's like, it's either you could sit in a dark room, or you could get up and pull the curtains and get the sun in. It just depends. You've got to be that person to motivate yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's only you and Allah in this world.
Yeah.
I think at this level of addiction, it's now more like a two-man job to help this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might require an entire team to help him.
Yeah.
But, again, you're right. We should have. I'm sure we have some out there. I have, come across organisations that help people with addiction and such things. I'm not sure how active they are, that they go out onto the street and speak to people. Obviously that would be better. Sometimes it's an issue of resources and such things. Or they just wait for people to come to them and then they assist them in that situation. But yes, I agree that, we need to be more proactive. You need to go to the people and say, look, this is the assistance we can give you. Come along.
Yeah, I think that's a reflection of society, that we let situations like this happen anyway.
Yeah.
That there hasn't been enough support earlier on to prevent things like this happen.
Yeah, subhanallah. Prevention is always easier than cure.
Yeah.
And that's the point, and that's what I spoke about right at the beginning. There are things in our deen that help us with this kind of thing, that prevent in the first place. Don't put yourself in that situation in the first place. Stay away. And Muslims, we don't go to these kind of parties. We're not interested in those kind of gatherings. Don't be there in the first place. You'll have no decision to make. Whereas when we compromise ourselves in the first place, and you have situations where you could fall into something terrible. But yes, having said that, it doesn't mean people who have made mistakes, we're going to neglect them, we're going to turn away from them. We'll try to help them as much as possible. And yes, a person may fall short once, twice, thrice, 20 times. We're still going to help that person. With families, it's complicated, as we spoke about, because it may impact and influence other people. But as a community, yes, we cannot give up on people.
Yeah. Inshallah, I think there's not much left of this video.
Yeah, otherwise my part, look, everybody in my family and everyone knew that I was going to have something, a bright future. And it turned out to be the other way. I'm a believer in God, and I believe that He writes our destiny, right? I thought that I would be somebody, get a 9 to 5 or a lawyer. That's what I was hoping. And it ended up to be one decision in my life made the whole thing change. It changed the whole thing. Now I can't go back because I'm thinking about my next hit. It's a very vicious circle. But there are places where you can get help, but you have to be committed to it. I mean, it's not just about the services; it's about yourself as well.
Are you ready for that?
That's the thing. I want to get a place to stay and settle down for this. I can't keep doing this and keep moving on the move. So I'm in line with Crisis Skyline. They want to get me settled first, and then get myself into a script.
So with this lifestyle, do you think it gets a bit depressing sometimes?
It's always depressing, brother. And I try not to think about the future, and I try not to think about the past. And the drugs helps me do that. Yeah.
What does the drug actually do?
Right now, it just takes the pain away. Yeah. When people say what symptoms are there are a lot of symptoms, a whole list of symptoms. People go in there to hospital with a bad leg. When I withdraw from heroin, I have cramps, I have chest pain, stomach pain, liver pain, lung pain, everything. And people think withdrawals, it's not.
So it's real pain you're going through?
Real pain, bro.
Wow. So how do you think the streets has changed you? From obviously you were telling us about where you went to, you had a law degree.
Yeah, no, I'm more streetwise. I'm more a street person, and what I've studied, I can't remember most of it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 20 years ago.
Yeah. What is streetwise?
Streetwise, knowing the street way of life. The street way of life. You know your own household and how you live your life. Whenever you get into a certain environment, if you're there long enough, you will adapt to that environment. We humans are very strong for that kind of purpose. Allah built us to adapt to certain situations. But when I was studying astronomy when I was about 9, I looked at the heavens and there are places, exoplanets, where it can harbour life, where there is liquid water. We can't survive. We can survive without sunlight, without heat, but water is essential, right? There are so many places, there's not even one single organic matter or organic life, and here we're flourishing with life, yeah? So there is a God, bro, and we're designed to adapt, but apart from that, I chose a path, and I want to get sorted, but it's not happening, and it's not going to happen until I sort myself out.
Do you have a dream?
Not at the moment, no. Now it's just thinking about the next moment and how I survive. And I think most of the rough sleepers and most of the addicts, this is how they see themselves first. It's a very tough way to get into it. It's a very, very tough way to live.
And the one lesson that you've learned, what would you say that is?
The one major lesson is never take things for granted. Never take things for granted, man. They could be here one day and gone the next. I took a lot of things for granted when I was studying.
So are you still practicing the religion? Or no? So you ever been in love?
No.
Never? Ever planned?
Siddhi, on that, anyone that is struggling with addiction, do you think, because obviously a lot of people might feel like, okay, because I have that now I can't practice my deen in the sense of whether praying salah or fasting or things like that. What do we have in Islam, especially someone who's trying to, like, with this brother, obviously has the regret and he's feeling all of that.
We're going to say this is, the shaitan pushing this person further and further away. No doubt people in these situations, they need strength. Where are you going to get your strength from other than from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, other than worshipping, calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So yeah, a lot of people, they are misled further by shaitan because they are obviously embarrassed and ashamed.
And I think they feel guilt as well, a lot of guilt.
And great guilt. But where do you take that embarrassment and guilt and shame other than to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who else can help you with it? You go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you seek forgiveness, you pray your prayer, and you try to strengthen yourself, and you do everything you can to change your life. Because otherwise, it's nothing but, as he said, it's a vicious cycle. And what's going to break that cycle? You need to be strong. And spiritual strength comes from the teachings of Islam and from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, I will never ever encourage a person to take that path where they're embarrassed and therefore they turn further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no refuge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You never turn away, you always turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what tawbah is all about. I can understand people get confused and they feel like that, but this is where I suppose more people need to go out and give dawah to such individuals and tell them, no, this is not the right response. The right response is you should be making dua, you should be making dhikr, you should be praying your salah, you should be engaging in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He spoke about how he's depressed, and of course there are lots of things he needs to do to overcome that, but certainly spiritual activity is going to assist with that.
I'm not sure. Earlier on in the video, he did say the guy did ask him like, "Why does he do it?" And he said it's the pain. Like he's trying to get rid of pain.
I was going to.
But that pain is never gonna go. It's just a temporary relief he uses for drugs, right? So
Yeah.
just spiritually, as you said, if he does start doing stuff to better his iman, that pain actually might start going away.
It needs something holistic.
Yeah.
The spiritual activity is very, very important, but it needs expert help. And he knows people who understand these chemicals and understand that what needs to be done. No doubt, from what I've heard, that it can, with some of these drugs, it's very painful when they leave them, so they have to be strong as well.
And it damages your body as well. So when he's talking about the physical aspect, like pain in the lungs and all of that, because it has damaged those parts of the body, so now you can feel it more.
I'm just trying to think of the other side of it. Like, obviously, it's like he's going through all this pain, right? It's like if we have a stomach pain or something and we take something and it relieves us. So when you got really bad stomach pain and you take something that relieves it, you think that's the right thing to do. Well, he's at that stage where he's taken a drug, and now when he doesn't take the drug, he's feeling all these pains that we don't know about, and now he's taken that drug to relieve that pain. In a way, it's similar. I'm not saying one is haram, one is halal, but how does one come out of that? I know it's experts and stuff, but
what we'll say to him, the analogy here would be, I'll build on your analogy. This person has stomach pain, so he takes a medication that relieve him temporarily, but ultimately make it worse. And the other option is to go have an operation. Let's say an operation without an anesthetic. Okay, it's going to be incredibly painful, incredibly difficult. Even after the operation, he's going to feel some pain, but ultimately, that's where the cure is. See, I know it's difficult, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect everyone from such situations, but that is the right decision. It's the more difficult decision, it's the more painful decision, but it is the right decision, and that's what's going to bring about the cure ultimately. Whereas to continue to do what you're doing, it's just going to it's the vicious cycle, and eventually it's just going to get worse and worse.
The judgment is clouded, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
That they don't know what the right decision is.
That's why outreach is important.
I think that's
it completely changes the structure in the brain.
Also, I don't think they care too much about what the right decision. They just need what's going to help them in that moment.
It's like a quick solution.
Yeah. What's going to relieve them? That's what they.
He does seem to have a plan.
He
does seem to have an understanding that there is a way out.
Yes,
and seems to be engaging.
This video was a few years ago, by the way, so maybe the brother, inshallah,
inshallah,
does see this. Or
But you raise a very important point. I suppose this is where outreach is so important.
Yeah, because
we go and try and help.
That's the key, Sidi, and I think it's the same with all our addiction series that we've done. It's like, it's easy for us to be outside in, right? Look outside of the glass and be like, do this, do that. But we all have gone through, tackled our nafs in our own ways, and whatever scale it is, and we know how difficult things are. So whether it be food addiction, pornography, drug addiction,
even social media addiction.
Social media, but let's be honest, it's just an addiction is an addiction, and you need help.
Yeah.
You need.
But again, with some of those others, the point is there's benefit and harm.
Yeah.
So,
With drug,
you see,
pornography,
with
drug,
from a certain perspective, those are a bit more difficult because
I think they're dangerous, aren't they?
Because we don't tend to say, and I won't say to people, right, social media haram.
Yeah,
you
can't say that. Yeah.
Okay, but with this, of
it's
course, once
prohibited.
people are in it, then we need to help them. But the point is, the initial prevention is very, very clear here.
Yeah.
Just don't put yourself in that situation in the first place.
Yeah. Sure.
I think we spoke about that he was obviously quite smart when he was young. He was a law degree. It shows that there seems to be like no correlation between intelligence and
that's a very good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah, it's not like just because you can't study, therefore you will become a drug addict. That's a massive stigma.
When you see the students that don't excel to a certain degree,
it's true.
They automatically assume it's from poor.
The brother went up to degree level.
Yeah,
and law, that's hard.
Yeah.
Passed law as well.
Yeah, so he went up to the level that's probably like he's now looking for a job.
Yeah.
Actually, no, with law you take it a bit further, but you know what I mean. It's so that's a very good point. And then that's another thing, Siddhi. It's not related to drug addiction, but it's more down to how we react to drug addicts. Because I think that's something Islamic. We need to conduct ourselves in a manner that we're approachable. We're not stigmatizing them, like Faya said. That just because it's not always down to people that are uneducated or whatever you want to whatever.
Or assuming their circumstances or judging them. Or...
Exactly. So what would you advise us like as to be a good Muslim, and how the Prophet ﷺ would approach such a situation if there is an example? I'm sure there is of several examples. There's an alcoholic.
There's a person who kept falling into that prohibition, which is drinking alcohol, and he was punished for it as well. But the Prophet ﷺ was supportive, and the Prophet ﷺ, essentially encouraged him to make tawbah, and never wrote him off. It was never written off that this person's just a waste of time. But that's the point, as I said earlier, we need systems in place because these are complicated issues.
For sure.
It's not straightforward. You need a whole system in place. You need those who are going to be able to advise in terms of how to come off the drug and other medications they can give them essentially. Instead of, you need a place of residence for the person. There's a whole system that needs to be implemented. And then, yes, as you've mentioned, we need the outreach. You need to go out to the people and find those who are ready to make the change. And prioritise them.
So what role do our masjids have?
I was going to say that,
this,
but
specific. Like, let's say this brother needs help, and if he was to turn up, do you feel he would face any shame?
I know, like some mosques I know that will not want him anywhere near the mosque. And that's the hard reality. And other mosques, I'm sure.
No doubt. This is about having the resources in place. Because let's be direct about it. He might have impurity on his clothes. He might not have washed for a very long time, etc. He enters into the masjid, and I don't want to say a drug addict enters into the masjid. There might be a very pungent smell, etc. Affects other people. But again, the response to that is not get out of the masjid. You have no right to kick a person out of the masjid. The response to that is let's assist this person. Okay, in your masjid sometimes drug addicts turn up. Okay. MashaAllah, masajid tend to have a lot of resources available. Have some clothes. Okay, have shower facilities
of
available.
course, that's a really good mosque.
Have food available for the person, inshallah. And then, yes, whatever the motivation is, as well as this person wants to come and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe he wants to be inside the masjid to save himself from the elements, the cold and the rain and such things. No problem, we're going to help him. You see, because he's in the masjid now, mashallah. Let's help him clean up. Let's feed him. Let's let him spend the day in the masjid. What's the problem? What's the issue? What's the concern? So that's, again, you got to get the balance right. We're not going to say, he's got filth all over his clothes. He has a pungent smell. Everybody's being affected by it. So no, but it's fine. We don't need to do that. Assist the person, help the person in every manner, inshallah. But again, you have to have things in place.
I've got a question quickly. So, say we see a person, a drug addict, on the street, they're begging for money.
No.
But the thing is, at the time, they say they're hungry, etc., etc.
Yeah.
We give them money
Yeah.
How
out
do
of
you know
good
the
faith.
drug addict, the ones you see on the street?
We can,
Homeless drug addict. You know,
Homeless,
homeless drug
Because
addict,
obviously you
etc.
can't assume. Like,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
the
saying
answer
that,
is
yeah.
going to be encompassing anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Encompass a drug addict and not drug
Some of
addict.
them will have like alcohol bottles and stuff.
Yeah, so you give them the money, they're hungry, etc. You've given it in good faith. However, they end up using that money for their addiction.
Yeah. Generally speaking, certainly in the, in the Hanafi method, but this is taken directly from certain hadith as well. When somebody is begging, you're not supposed to give that person any money, or you give that person enough money for food alone. Okay? We actually have quite strict rulings against giving to beggars. When somebody is actively begging, it's different to somebody who's not begging, but you can see the person is poor. You can give that person as much as you like, no problem. But when somebody is actively begging, you're not supposed to give them anything whatsoever, or you give them enough for that day's food and nothing else whatsoever. Why? Because there's a prohibition on begging. You can only beg when it's an absolute dire necessity. Again, I think we should maybe do a full session on this to understand it. So, but the advice and my stance with regards to these kind of things, when I'm approached by beggars and they say, I'm hungry, so Bismillah, no problem, come, I will buy you some food, inshallah.
Yeah.
This is the better approach, because otherwise, there's a lot to say about this, but essentially it becomes a cycle.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. We're talking about drug addicts here.
Yeah.
But what about the people that actually give them the drugs? What the drug dealers?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
What about the people, like, I know, I'm not going to try and point fingers, but I know a lot of people within the Muslim community
So
do sell
many.
drugs.
Yeah.
They don't use it, but they sell
Yeah,
it.
they sell it. It is quick
They make
money,
money off-
Drug dealers.
Yeah.
but that money is haram, right?
100%.
As well
yeah.
as that, they're ruining someone's life.
I think they
Isn't that
they
oppression?
worse.
Isn't that
Yeah.
This is amongst
a good
the
point, by the way,
worst
Brian.
of oppression. These are ahlul fasadi fil ard. These are people who are spreading corruption on the land.
Subhanallah.
And in dunya and akhirah, their punishment is severe. The punishment of such people is severe. And we should try to advise such people. This is where I sometimes get quite frustrated that we have a huge opportunity as a Muslim community to utilize the Jummah khutbah.
Yeah.
The Jummah khutbah for me is so underutilized. If I was a regular khatib somewhere, then I would speak about drugs, and especially drug dealers, every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You don't
yeah.
address it once and leave it.
Yeah.
You address it again and again and again.
It's true.
And people say, they're not going to listen. How do you know? You don't know. I'm
You
not
haven't addressed
But
it.
there
have
are.
you?
Exactly.
And we also know that there are people who were former drug dealers and they did make tawbah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see, address it again and again. You address the dealers and you address the audience as well. You speak about things like this, the harms of it.
Yeah.
You warn over and over and over again. And people need to recognize there's a difference for a Muslim. There's a difference when they're being warned in school, okay, where they don't often, I'm not saying everybody, they don't take it so seriously and actually rebelling against what's being said is, the in thing. There's a difference between that and when you're speaking to a Muslim quoting Quran and Hadith.
Yeah.
That there's a sanctity there. It's completely different. So they need to address it. I mean, it's fine and well that we're addressing it here and I address it in other videos of mine, but the Jummah khutbah is a massive opportunity. You have the community there.
You have a lot of
Address
youth
it.
as well.
The youth are there as well. The parents are there as well.
Yeah.
The uncles are there as well. Okay, you speak about it continuously. When you have an issue in your community, you don't address it once, especially if it's something as dangerous as this. You address it over and over again, and this is not the only issue in our communities. There are many issues. You can't just. I spoke about that last year, so it's too big of an issue.
Yeah.
No, so it's underutilized.
Yeah, another question. So, I'm not going to expose the name, but I had an individual where I was speaking to him because I was trying to get him on the right path as well. So I was like to him, the amount of people's life you're ruining. But his response surprised me. He goes, but I'm not the one that comes up to me to give the drugs. He comes and asks me. I'm not the one ruining his family. He's ruining his own family. What would you say to that individual to give them advice?
Astaghfirullah al-Azim. I say,
Let alone this guy. I'd say he's around 16, 17 now.
Also, just to add on to that is, if you are a drug dealer, every time you sell a drug, do you get sin for every time they use that drug?
Yeah, the sin just continues on and on.
It's like in the family as well, right? So
You have the sin of selling the drug to this person. You have the sin of destroying this person's life. He is also, we're never going to say the person who's taking drug has no responsibility. Of course he has responsibility. Okay? Well. He has responsibility as well. Destroying his life, what you're doing to the family, what you're doing to the entire community. Because this person's going to affect the community.
Yeah, for sure.
No. He might. This person who's taking these drugs is possibly going to encourage other people to take drugs alongside him as well. As for his saying, if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else, or I'm not the one who's actually taking the drug. This makes no sense whatsoever, especially from the perspective of the Muslim. Okay? As far as Muslims are concerned, neither can we be the consumers of something which is sinful, nor can we be the distributors of that which is sinful. It's almost like saying, let's change the situation with this person. Let's say there's a book that encourages kufr, encourages Muslims to become atheists, okay? And you're selling this book, and you say, well, I'm not the one actually reading it and becoming atheist, but you're pushing it. You're pushing kufr. It makes no sense
you're
whatsoever.
Anti-dawah.
Isn't it a bit like the alcohol as well? Like if you
the Prophet
are selling it, you are carrying it.
I think it's anything that's harmful.
Yeah,
with guns as well.
Yeah, with alcohol it's even more specific. It's mentioned in Hadith. The one who carries it, the one who purchases it, the one who sells it, the one who pours it, the one who drinks it. So stuff. This kind of thing people do just to justify it in their own mind. Most people
it's just
do know deep down in their heart. They do know it's wrong.
Yeah.
They just others will say, if it's not me, it'll be somebody else.
That's
how young individuals are. As well as this, let's be for real. We can focus on the drug addicts, etc. But what about individuals that don't smoke all the time? It's occasional. They do it for fun with friends, and especially Ramadan's coming up. What sort of advice would you give them?
Or leisurely drug addicts.
People just
smoke.
So like you got some of the men that will go out smoke weed with the boys.
Alright, so they're not addicts,
they're
but
not addicts,
they're
but
just doing haram because
they
they are smoking weed. This is we're talking about,
and it's like in this society as well. It's very stupid. Like everyone thinks like smoking weed makes you look bad and all of that. But I'm telling you, the side effects of weed is crazy. Like it actually does no good. The people are like, but it's like relaxing. Maybe medically it might do good, as in the CBD, but the THC, with the one that gives you the high, that's the worst thing you could do. Because first of all, you're not in the right mindset as well. CBD is more like a calm and relaxant. So people who have epilepsy and for medical use, they'll be, if I'm right, it would be permissible for them.
Yeah, in the right context, a medical expert has to guide the person to it and explain to the person how to use it and such things, of course. But this is recreational. This is prohibited, no doubt about it. As for advice, we advise. Essentially, it will be similar advice to any person committing sin. We tell this person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited this. It's going to destroy your dunya, it's going to destroy your akhirah. We're here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not here to engage in these kind of things. The satisfaction that they bring about, if any, is fleeting. In terms of relaxation, anybody says it relaxes me, I'll say there's nothing that's going to relax you like sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing that's going to relax you like the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have something greater, purer, more illuminated. You've been given it as a gift.
But what if I say to you, but I'll start being religious when I'm older? What would you have to say to that? Because I'm young. It don't matter. I'm young, I'm healthy, nothing's going to happen to me.
Or what if they say that they're already religious, they do everything, they pray and they Quran, but they just use, like, it can't be that harmful if I'm doing everything else right, and then every once in a while I just take a puff.
And they're doing something wrong with the practice.
Because
and they're like one step forward, two step back.
Because you see a lot of, visibly practicing Muslims, and then they smoke weed like very often. It's quite prevalent.
I think it comes down to that it's education, because a lot of them don't know that it's haram. number one, and number two is they do know it's haram, but they probably think it's a lesser sin.
A lot of them think it says makruh.
Yeah.
I believe Muslims is makruh.
So it's all down to education. Like the reality of it is, it's something that's harmful to your body. Therefore, if it's not medical, it's prohibited in Islam, and that's with everything, right? Food in general is not haram unless it's like haram food.
It's like alcohol. I think Sidney said it before, and there's more bad to it than it's good, right? So the thing is as well though, a lot of, as I was saying about the whole weed situation, what about, because Ramadan is coming up, the 40-day thing where a lot of people are smoking all this stuff, bad intoxicant, will that affect their Ramadan? Because of prayers, as you know, you can't pray for 40 days.
Yeah, we have in the Hadith where the Prophet ﷺ spoke about somebody who drinks wine or alcohol, that this person's prayers will not be accepted for 40 days. We have that concept. Some will make an analogy of that to other recreational drugs and such things, but people need to be clear. Nobody said that hadith means you're not allowed to, or you don't pray for 40 days. You must pray your prayer. The only time you don't pray your salah is when you're intoxicated. This is mentioned in the Holy Quran. Don't approach the prayer whilst you're intoxicated. When a person is intoxicated, they can't pray in that intoxicated state, because essentially that's making a mockery of the salah itself. Whereas other than that, no, it's obligatory to pray. They must pray, and they must make tawbah for the sin they've committed. And yes, there's a possibility that they may not be rewarded for their prayer. Some people say, if I'm not going to be rewarded, why do I pray? When we're speaking about religious obligations, there are two aspects to it. One is you fulfill your obligation, you avoid sin. Two, you fulfill your obligation, you attain reward. Okay, so a person who was engaging in intoxicants, say 5 days ago, they must still pray their prayer. And if they say, well, I might not get reward anyway, we'll say, yes, you shouldn't have done that in the first place, but what you will do is you'll fulfill your obligation of salah, and you'll avoid the punishment of having missed salah. You may be punished for the intoxicant, and you may not gain the reward, but you'll be saved from the punishment. That's how obligations work. When you fulfill an obligation, a religious obligation, two things happen. You save yourself from the punishment of not having done it, and you gain reward of having done it. You see, he misses out on this half but not the other half.
Okay, as you said, intoxicating. Sorry, I'm speaking a lot here.
About go on, Dr. Ibrahim.
What about if I'm not sure, about 6 hours, someone's intoxicated, they made a mistake. And you said if they intoxicate, they can't pray.
Sorry, these hours, maybe, I don't know if we've...
Because some drugs do take time to wear off.
I think there's a hadith on 6 hours. Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, I think I am right.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That's what I'm pretty sure, right?
There's hadith, if I'm not mistaken, it's in Tabarani, where the Prophet ﷺ spoke about the sin not being recorded for a period of time. I'm a little bit reluctant to translate it specifically as 6 hours, because sa'a, which is the word used, or sa'at, the plural, it wasn't used in the way we use it nowadays. They didn't measure time in that manner back then. We don't have hadith which says at 3 o'clock pray dhuhr. It wasn't like that. It was related to the morning you do this, in the afternoon you do this. So they didn't speak about the movement of the sun, and they didn't speak about time in that manner. However, there is a hadith that speaks about 6 sa'at. So 6, as you said, it might be better to translate it as 6 periods of time. The point is, the hadith does speak about that there's a period of time within which if the sin is not recorded, if the person makes tawbah, then the sin's not going to be recorded. However, no person in our history, no scholar in our history, no sahabi in our history ever looked at that hadith and said, okay, that means commit sin and quickly make tawbah. It's just contrary.
Well, if I'm right, there is a sort of salah that you could do if you do make a mistake.
Salat tawbah.
Salat tawbah,
and seek
Is
tawbah.
that sunnah or
Yes, it's mentioned in hadith. Now it's encouraged in hadith to pray 2 rakats and make tawbah.
I do have a fit question. So, if, for example, a drug dealer is watching any other video and they decided not to drug deal anymore, but they've made income, and maybe they've even bought a house, they're living in that house, they're feeding the family, they bought a car, how can they purify the income, and what should they do with maybe the assets or things that they've
The
used
income
to buy?
which is directly from haram, give it to the poor.
What, even if they've got a house?
Yeah, anything which is directly from the drugs, give it to the poor.
So they have to move
sell
out,
the
sell the house.
spend the money.
They should not benefit one iota from the money they make you alcohol. Give it all in sadaqah. Start afresh. It's better you start afresh here and fix yourself here rather than have to deal with this in the akhirah. Wa na'udhu billah. You just think sometimes that a person who deals drugs, how long is the rows of people, the rows of people that have got complaints against them going to be on the Day of Judgment?
So you're talking about generation to generation too. Everyone you've come, like, you know, that person that takes the drugs, they might have encountered.
You have this Sahih Hadith where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned any murder that takes place, the first son of Adam, Sayyidina Adam will share in its sin. Because why? Because he introduced the very concept of murder. He's the first person to ever murder somebody. So we do have this understanding when you're essentially propagating sin in a society, then that's going to accumulate against you. These people selling this poison, I can't imagine their situation on the Day of Judgment if they are not forgiven. It is any subhanallah, just for temporary fleeting pleasure in the dunya, which is not even deep pleasure anyway. How much pleasure does it give you to drive a nice car? How long does that last? It's fleeting. Okay, before long you've had enough and then you need the next thing. That's the nature of dunya. Dunya, let's not make things too complicated, but they speak about why dunya is called dunya. And one opinion is called dunya because of it being lowly. Okay, something which is lowly, the root of dunya refers to things which are low. That's the nature of this life. It's mundane, it's lowly. There's nothing in it. This is why people who chase dunya, they're always chasing it. It's like, if I do this and I'll be happy, I'll really have true pleasure and joy. No, you won't. There's no true pleasure in it. The only true pleasure in this life is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are spiritually pleased, then your soul is pleased. That's true pleasure. Where subhanallah, and most drug dealers, how do they live their life? They're always looking over their shoulder anyway. What kind of life is that? What are you getting for what you're doing?
There's so many people that have just been raided and just like the police have raided them and they've
raided, killed, kidnapped. Their families have been attacked.
Sleep with an eye open.
Carry weapons as well.
Because
that leads to like.
They destroy their dunya before they destroy their akhirah. And they destroy other people's lives. There's nothing in it.
Subhanallah.
What about, you know how you said like they have to get rid of everything? Would getting rid of everything count as sadaqah or?
No. All they are
it's
doing,
almost like an obligation to get rid of it, isn't it?
But a lot of people might think, oh, I'm donating all my haram
they're
money.
not donating anything.
To halal, that's sadaqah, etc., etc. You get what I mean?
They are not donating anything. All they're doing is trying to clean their mess. That's what they're trying, and there's a lot more they need to do.
So should the drug dealers be apologising to like family members? Like they're on the
their family members, the family members of the people they have poisoned with this. Seek forgiveness from all of these people they've wronged, as well as seeking immense forgiveness. Don't get into it in the first place. This is what, again, people need to observe their company. If you have the wrong company, they're going to give you all of these ideas. No, you get money, you get this, you get respect. You get nothing. Even in the dunya, you get nothing. If you don't have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your life, what do you have? If your heart is not filled with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's filled with shoes and watches and cars. What kind of existence is that? That's the existence of a kafir. That's darkness. There's no light in that person's life. And then, first of all, there's no true pleasure in this person's life. And secondly, they're endangering their own life and their family's life. This happens.
The life is materialistic. That's what it is.
Subhanallah. They said they got really passionate.
It's left of the video, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
After that, we'll find the same and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, because we do need to.
And being in love. Yeah? And another thing is, so for instance, when you're on drug, do you get sexual urges as well?
Yeah, when you're on crack, you get sexual urges and stuff like that. But it all depends on it. But it depends on the person's mindset. depends on the person's mindset. My priority is always to get myself sorted first, because I'm not a strong person, I'm also anorexic, so I'm always thinking about my hair. And it depends on the person and the individual. So maybe you're interviewing some next person and he will say something different.
And if somebody was to come to you, or you heard of somebody who was planning on getting into drugs, what would your advice be to that person?
No, I would advise them to stay away. Yeah, stay away, get to know your drug first. But the best thing is, please stay out of this game. You don't know it until you get involved. And when you do, by then the doors have already shut, it's already too late.
Hard to get out of, yeah? And is there anything you'd like to say to us?
All I like to say is, we're all humans, and here on earth it's a blessing. Take each day as it is now. Make the most of it. Make the most of it.
Subhanallah, the brother definitely seemed like he knew what he was talking about. So.
Something comes along, so masterful, it leaves you in awe.
Cross it out. So we'll just cut that out. So yeah, Bismillah. So yeah, I think watching that gave us a different view on everything. I think we had some good discussions on it. Inshallah, hopefully our viewers.
Aziz, I think. So I was just wondering, we don't know, maybe inshallah he's come out of it.
Yeah, brother Aziz, if you are watching and you have come out, please get in touch with us as well, because subhanallah, it's very important that.
I think they need to change their terminology.
Yeah,
he said, "Don't get into the game."
Yeah.
It's not a game. Of course, that's just the way they speak. I'm not trying to attack him. Call it what it is. Disaster.
Yeah.
This is a
calamity.
Disaster. This is a calamity. It's a disease. It's a filthy life that a person lives if he's a drug addict.
Yeah.
Anyone sometimes the terminology can have.
Yeah, it's true. It makes it seem like it's more appealing, or it's
less than what it is.
Yeah.
It's a disaster.
Yeah.
You're absolutely ruining your life and those around you.
Yeah.
I think an ultimate message from this is that no one ever goes in thinking they're going to get addicted.
Yeah.
No one has the intention they're going to get addicted.
Exactly.
It just happens to anybody.
It's just a bit of fun. It's a game.
Yeah.
A bit of fun.
Exactly.
I would use
I
that.
think that's probably why he was saying games. Maybe that initially was what it was, like it's a game.
Yeah, and also it's just it's the word.
It's a commercialized word, isn't it? But I think
is it again? I'm not blaming him. It's just what everybody calls.
No,
it.
everyone else does it. Yeah. It's just trying to make it seem normal, but yeah.
Maybe it was initiated by the drug dealers themselves.
Yeah.
It
was.
Yeah. It's a filthy situation to be in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect everybody.
Yeah, Amen.
And we should help those who are falling into
Yeah, I was about to say that,
Yes.
inshallah, anyone that's watched this, that wants to seek help, etc., are we going to put out signposts?
We've been doing that for all the
For all the addiction.
Maybe if I can, maybe a message to the Masjida themselves.
Yeah, of course.
Open up your doors for such people.
Yeah.
And have the facilities available for them.
Yeah.
And have your imams regularly address this issue.
Yeah, definitely for
I also think we should open a Salamseeker Masjid. That's what I've been thinking.
Inshallah. Yeah, inshallah we will slowly get there with everyone's support. Perfectly gets us into the last bit where Ibrahim, you're going to say about getting us liking, subscribing, but not getting addicted to us.
Don't forget to like, subscribe and share.
Yeah, inshallah. And any addiction, inshallah, next week we're doing one more of our addiction series. If anyone's interested in any other series, let us know, but we've got a whole list of...
Or if we missed any elements of addiction.
Yeah. And do reach out to us, because we're always open to answer questions personally from direct messages. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our Shaykh here, who's always open to answer the questions, give his time for those questions, and we try our best to get around, because people have very specific questions, and I think that's the key. Like, you can't really answer it in a podcast. You can touch on the generalized points. If you've got specific questions, just reach out to us. Inshallah, we're more than happy to help you or direct you.
Before we do close up, there is an anonymous form on our page, so if you don't want your name to be baited out whatsoever, and you want to be anonymous on your questions, go ahead, fill it in, and then one of our team would review it and give it to you.
We'll put it in the description.
Yeah, mashallah, jazakallah. On that note, inshallah, we will end it there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.